So, I just got done watching Yasuke on Netflix, and a Netflix original anime series as it pops up. And I want to talk about it for a little bit. First of all, I'm doing this because I know Castlevania Season 4 is right around the corner. As of me recording this this review, I'm sorry. It should come out tomorrow. What is it? May 12th? Yeah, I think it comes out tomorrow. So hopefully I'll have this review uploaded and done by the time it comes out, hopefully. So I got my notes right here in front of me. So let me just say up front, if you don't want to stick around for a lot of bullshit, let me just say up front, I enjoyed it as a whole. But there's definitely some parts in it that I think could have been massively improved, and I'll go over that. So let me pull up my notes here, and I'm running this through the stat profile system in case you're new, anyone's new here. The way I review, and you can't see, but I'm doing quotations, is review. The way I review series is, if you know anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you might understand what a stat profile is. If you don't, it's fine. I'll have a little graphic up on the screen for you. It's basically like a pentagon shape, and we've got 5 points on that pentagon. And you give those spots a grade based on how you think a certain thing does. And I have two of these stat profiles, one for video games and then one for anime. This one we're throwing into the anime stat profile, which the 5 points are animation, story and plot, voice acting, characters, and music, with music arguably being the most subjective on the list. I mean, it's all subjective. Let's be real here. It's all subjective. It's all my opinion. It's cool. All right. You're on the internet. You are allowed to have opinions, believe it or not. So don't get your panties in a twist. If I say something you don't like, if you like something and I don't, that's cool. That's cool, bro. So let's not waste any more time. Up front, we're going to start with animation. One, because it's probably, in my opinion, the best thing about the series, and two, because it's the first thing I'm up here on my notes. So for the animation grade, I decided to give it an A, and on my scale it goes from S, A, B, C, and D. So A is pretty good. A is pretty good. It's a bit rough in certain spots, like certain characters, they don't move. It just looks like they kind of slide on screen. I only noticed that one episode. It was like episode 2, and there was an instance where a character spoke a line or two, but their lips didn't move. So there's just a little, but that didn't. If it happened more, I didn't notice it. But I only noticed like two of those instances. Excuse me. But overall, the animation's pretty good. And as a matter of fact, the 3D models that they had for some of the fighting in the last 2 episodes were pretty good. I know 3D kind of gets a bad rap, rightfully so most of the time, but the 3D modeling here was good. So I gotta give you props for that. This series was produced by Studio Mappa. Yes, that Studio Mappa. So you can expect some at least like good quality work, right? And the backgrounds are nice. They're nice to look at. They're even like scattered. They even have, most of it's like nature stuff, obviously, because a lot of it takes place like traveling in the woods and stuff like that. And there's like little hints of like broken statues or like giant like cogs from machinery and stuff like that. That's kind of overgrown. It's kind of nice. Kind of nice. Kind of sets the tone that while it is like feudal Japan, there is like technology that shouldn't be there, like giant mechs and shit like that. And the fighting animation, because this is primarily because this is good, this is an action anime. So the fighting animation in particular has to be good, and it was good, but there were certain parts of it that it could have been done just a teensy bit better. Like there's one fight, I think it's in episode 1. There's a fight with Yasuke before he becomes a samurai, and he has to fight this other guy with a sword with his fists. And there's a few seconds of animation where it's just nice and fluid and it feels like it's got some weight to it, and I really like that. And overall, with the way the show goes, it just kind of like you probably couldn't do that because of the high octane action, the fast movements and all that. You probably couldn't do that, but overall, I kind of like it when animation is kind of has a little bit of a weight to it. Like when someone someone hits, or when someone like attacks somebody with something, it's like it's nice when you can kind of feel like, yeah, that hit hurt, or wow, that thing really did cut him, or like this, oh wow, this sword, this axe really cut him through. But that's my personal preference. Doesn't mean the fight animation was bad. The fighting was quite good. I liked it. And I guess overall, like I said, animation was probably the best thing about this show. And I hope it gets a season 2 because I'm kind of, I shouldn't, but I'm kind of comparing this to the first season of Castlevania. I guess because 1, the season 4 is right around the corner, and 2, they kind of do similar things. And maybe not as far as animation goes, but as far as like kind of like they meet beats, they meet the same kind of beats. And that obviously Castlevania got way much better animation as it went. So I'm kind of hoping there's a season 2 because they can massively improve on, because if they massively improve, or even if they just improve period on the animation, this could easily become an S tier. So that's all I have to say about that. The story and plot, now we start getting into the stuff that is either or starts dwindling down into this could have been better territory. I do want to make it clear, I don't, except for maybe one instance in in the voice acting category, I don't think anything in the show is outwardly bad. It's nothing that's going to make you just stop and not watch the show. But like the animation, unfortunately, is an A, and that's probably as high as that's like the highest thing. Spoiler alert: that is the highest ranked thing on this little TED talk I've got going. So for next, we've got the story and plot. So where do I begin with this? The story is pretty standard. We've heard this. We've seen this kind of story done a million times before. And that in and of itself isn't bad. It's this like, it's this lone, like not super warrior, because Yasuke, to be fair, he's not like a super soldier, but like this like lone surviving warrior who puts himself or gets put into exile. He goes a certain amount of years not doing anything, just kind of in the doldrums. And then he's just, boom, he's thrusted into this responsibility that takes him on an epic adventure, preferably with like a young child to kind of help reignite the spark in his heart. That kind of story. We've seen that done a million times before. That one, and that in and of itself is not a critique. But what is a critique is I do not think the show does enough with it to not warrant being put into a pile with the rest of them that doesn't get law. I don't know what I'm trying. Like, if you took this and you compared it to other kinds of anime that are similar to this, kind of like not extremely similar, but kind of like Castlevania, kind of like what's another one? Maybe a All right, I guess you got me there. All right, I guess you got me there. I can't remember it because there's so many of them. I can't remember like a single one that kind of stands out. If any of you know, you can let me know in the comments below. Uh, but what I'm saying is like if you took this and you dropped it in a bag full of other anime stories that are like this, and you shuffled it around, and could you could you like pick it out amongst like others? Probably not, but once again, that's just my humble opinion. And the second thing I noticed is the pacing of the pacing of the show. Now this is 100%, I believe 100% because of the amount of episodes and the amount of runtime each episode gets. This show only has 6 episodes and each episode runs for about 30 minutes. And like, believe it or not, it does kind of, what does that equate to? Like 31, 32. That's like 3 hours, right? That's like 3 hours worth of content. That's like a Lord of the Rings movie. You're watching a Lord of the Rings movie. And unlike a Lord of the Rings movie, the pacing really, really, really is jarring because there's a lot of instances where things just were like, for instance, the first 3 let me get into specifics here. For instance, the first 3 episodes, the first 3 episodes and the last 3 episodes feel like an arc that should have been expanded. Like it should have been, the first 3 episodes should have been the first 6, should have been a whole season, and then the last 6 should have been their whole season. But because they tried to cram in all this stuff in like 6 episodes, they end up like only meeting things. They only end up doing things halfway for both. For instance, the first 3 episodes, and I'm issuing a spoiler alert right now. If you don't want to be spoiled, leave, plug your ears, keep watching the video, please, because I need those views, because Papa YouTube is very not kind to me. And go. Okay, so the first 3 episodes, we're introduced to Yasuke, who used to be a samurai under Oba Nobunaga, and Nobunaga's like castle is sieged by an enemy force. Nobunaga kills himself. Yasuke goes, he kind of like escape. I see, this is the thing. It never really explains how he escaped, or if he even escaped like at all, and they just kind of let him alone. It's just, there's a passing line in the last 3, but it's just, I kind of need to know how he got out of that situation. But anyway, he becomes a boatman. So for about 20 years, it's presumed he's been a boatman for 20 years. And he just kind of ferries people up and down the river. He fishes. He pays bandits along with the fish, and et cetera, et cetera. And the first episode ends with him. The first episode ends with him getting him. How do I put this? There's a woman in the bar who has a daughter who has secret magical powers. She's like the child, right? She has the power. We've seen this before, but she's sick and she needs to get to a doctor, quote unquote, and she needs Yasuke to bring her. Well, at first she wasn't going to, but then a little boy mentions Yasuke to her, and she wants Yasuke to do it, of course, because of the kind of story this is. Yasuke says no, then he eventually says yes, and then he tries to take him upriver. They're ambushed by mercenaries, and and then the daughter's powers kind of go wild. She kills her mother. Yasuke gets swept down river, and that's when episode 1 ends. And then episode 2 picks up with a priest who's looking for the girl because apparently she's part of some kind of prophecy, and he needs her power so that he can control the Catholic Church in Europe, which is kind of odd. It's one of those things that feels like that should have been, expanded just a little bit, but it's never explained. It's never explained why the Catholic Church has a prophecy about this little girl in Japan, in feudal Japan, who has mystical powers, and how she's supposed to be able to, how he's supposed to help her control the Catholic Church, and then he's going to rule Europe. That's not really explained. And we don't really get much in the way of like knowing about the priest either, except for a few bits and pieces of dialogue where he was like sent there on a mission trip, like an actual mission trip. And he hired the 4 mercenaries who attacked Yasuke and the little girl's mother. And the second episode basically is Yasuke gets attacked by these mercenaries. He's framed for the murder of the mother of the girl and I keep saying the girl because I can't remember her name at the current moment. It starts with an S. Saki, I think is her name. And I think that's her name, is Saki. So he's blamed for Saki's mother's murder, and then he's ousted by the village, and he gets kidnapped, and he's essentially tortured because the priest is trying to find the girl because the girl has magical powers, and the magical powers were foretold by a prophecy from the Catholic Church. Whatever. And so episode 2 ends because with her being on the run, and I believe it's at the end. Is either at the end of episode 2? No, it's end of episode 3. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. I'm skipping a lot here. If it feels like I'm going through this quick, that's basically how the show. That's basically how these first 3 episodes feel. So the third episode, the little girl, like as she's being pursued, right? So this entire time, she's like, her and Yasuke get separated. And like she's like trying to find him. She's like trying to find help. And this entire time she's being pursued. And the entire time she's using her powers. But it's been kind of demonstrated beforehand that she can't really control her powers in a way. But then like as she's being pursued, it showed that like she can control them. And then she magically is able to control it enough to where, because she does find Yasuke with the priest and everything, and she's able to somehow control her powers enough where she can fight off the priest, even though, like I said, it's been established before that she can't really control her power, but whatever. So she beats the priest, but the priest doesn't die. Like he's able to hold out against her attacks. Yasuke breaks free. He tries to break his neck, which is pretty morbid, but he still doesn't die. And then after that, she just, I don't even remember how she kills. She kills him now I remember. She picks up a cross, like a giant cross statue, and impales him with it because symbolism. And that's how the first 3 episodes end, and I do apologize if I kind of sped through that, but that's kind of how the first 3 episodes feel. It feels like this could have been expanded. You could have taken this priest thing, this whole concept of the prophecy for controlling the Catholic Church in Europe. You could kind of expand that to the first season, but instead they kind of just crammed a bunch of stuff into three episodes, and then the last three episodes have to deal with the daimyo I believe was referenced a couple times in the first three episodes. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember her being referenced because she's like the big bad. She's kind of like the big bad guy, and she gets wind of Saki and her powers, and so she tries to lay claim to her herself. So Saki and Yasuke resolve to find the doctor that Saki's mother wanted to take her to, who we come to find out from Yasuke is actually somebody he used to know when he was a samurai for Oba Nobunaga. And I'm not going to do another play-by-play like I did the first three episodes. Basically, the last three episodes are Yasuke and Saki traveling to find the doctor, who I believe is named is Moriosuke, I believe is his name. And that the last three episodes kind of feel like what what a whole season should have been about, because because the last three episodes do start to put an emphasis on Saki and Yasuke's relationship. You know, how they're kind of growing to be friends and stuff like that. And it's too quick. It's only three episodes and they're each 30 minutes. And like, believe it or not, that's not enough time to really, it can be if written correctly, but I don't believe it is, because and we'll get into the voice act, and we'll get into that when we get into the characters part. But like, they try to do some things. They try to have the witty banner and stuff like that like Castlevania does, but like it doesn't work as well because of the next category, which is the voice acting. And I guess with that story and plot, I have to give it a B. There are some I give it a B because I wasn't like actively hating it. I wasn't actively like, oh my god, okay, let's just get through this next episode. I was invested enough, but I can see when I look at it, when I see those first three episodes and I see those last three episodes, I can't help but think now, man, they should have taken those first three episodes, turned it into like a whole season arc, or like the last three, turn it into a whole season arc. That's what they should have done, but it's not what happened. I have to kind of grade it. I know I have to grade it based on what we've got, but I'm giving it a B. Which if I did, it would probably be, it would probably still be a B, because like a C would be like if I'm struggling to get through it. A B is like, yeah, I was invested enough. So yeah, I'll stick with B. I think B is a good one. So like I said earlier, this kind of leads into the voice acting, which is, the voice acting is very like, if you took a scale, it's pretty much exactly kind of balanced out. Maybe a little bit more towards good than bad, but like the two bad ones are prominent characters, so like they kind of they weigh more on the scale. And what I mean is, you've got, in my opinion, you've got some standouts. And I listened to the English dub. This is all according to the English dub of this anime. If you listen to any other dub, I can't speak for it. This is purely just for the English dub. So we've got people like Dan Donahue, I think is how you pronounce that, and Darren Criss, who Dan actually voices Abraham the priest in the first three episodes, and Darren voices Haruto, which is the giant robot that with a sense of humor kind of thing, with a personality kind of thing. They do a very good job, but they're balanced out by Lakeith Stanfield and Maya Tanita, who voice Yasuke and Saki respectively. And it's just for Lakeith Stanfield, for Yasuke stuff, admittedly, that's probably more so on the writing of Yasuke more than the actual voice acting, because Yasuke doesn't emote a lot of the time. He's not monotone, but he's very one tone kind of character. And you can do this well. You can do this and have charm. And I hate to keep comparing it, but like the first season of Castlevania, when we get introduced to Trevor is pretty much this exact type of character, but it's charming. His voice act, I don't remember his voice actor, and I do apologize, but like, he's written and he's performed enough, like, in a way where it's charming. Yasuke isn't really written in a way that the one-toned performance comes off as charming. And this is a problem because they try to have and I'm going to call it Castlevania style banter, because if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. They try to have it between him and Saki, and it just doesn't work as well as it does in Castlevania, in that series. So it's just, I can't. And then Maya Tanita, I think her voice acting is I want to say it's fine to low, like to category. But I will admit there were a couple lines that were like, okay, maybe you should have let her try another take. Or when she's supposed to be screaming in pain, she doesn't really like convey that she's in fucking pain. So it's just kind of, you got, like I said, you got to balance. Like I said, the good characters are characters that aren't around much, but the characters that do sound kind of to bad are main characters, and that kind of weighs the scale back out. However, I will admit, I did write down that I had some other performances that I thought were very worth mentioning. I can't fucking speak. That were worth mentioning. Amy Hill as the Daimyo, she did a very good job. Ming-Na Wen as Natsumaru, which I did not know Ming-Na Wen was in this. I thought she sounded familiar. And Paul Nakamuchi as Morisuke. Morisuke? Is it Morisuke? I think it's Morisuke. I'm sorry, I can't speak. So those voice actors and actresses, they also deserve a round of applause. They deserve a good job for the performance they did. So for the voice acting, I'm going to put it at, I would also choose B, because, like I said, there's enough good performances where even though the main performances are kind of lacking and they kind of weigh the scale down, there's enough good on the other side from other characters that kind of evens it out. So we'll meet in the middle and say it's a B. The next, which now leads into this category, which is the characters. And I'll run through this really quickly because you don't really get a lot of character development. You don't really get a lot of character stuff with anybody that's other than Yasuke and Saki, which is good and it's bad in its own way. Yasuke, of course, he's the main character. He's like the main dude. He's the guy the show is named after, for God's sake. So he gets good development. Saki gets good development because she's the plot. She's like the thing, right? She's the MacGuffin. She gets a little bit of development, and then you get a small tidbits, like Ichiro, who's a young little kid in the village that Yasuke visits, who wants to be a samurai, who looks up to Yasuke. He gets a little bit of character. Shut up, phone. he gets a little development, but not much. And then after that, you like every single other like character that's gonna be like that's not a main character, but like a main side character. You know, like Morsuke, the daimyo, daimyo. Is it daimyo or daimyo? I actually don't know. Uh, like the priest Abraham, these kind of main side characters and some villains even don't really get fleshed out. They don't really have a character outside of like what they are, which is like the daimyo is a bad guy. She's like super old. She's like super powerful and she's evil. That's it. That's all her character is. Uh Abraham, the priest, he's a crazy priest who wants Saki to be able to control the Catholic Church in Europe. That's all we get of that. You do get a tiny little bit from other characters like Morsuke, but that's because he has established relationship with Yasuke, so they kind of play a little bit with that. Not much, but I mean it's there. Uh, and like, and because of what I mentioned earlier, the pacing of the show, it really does not help because the story is like, okay, we got to go, we got to get to this part, we got to do this part, we got to do this part. Like it's just kind of like trying to hit beats, and it's not really like fleshing out it's not fleshing like characters out. That's not, you know, the main two dudes, the main two characters, you know, which is Yasuke and Saki. Arguably, the daimyo is also a main character, but she doesn't even get a speaking role until the third episode. I think the end of the third episode. So it's up to you if you want to count her as one. So it's because, and I could see it in my head, man, where like if they expanded the priest stuff with Abraham and the whole Europe stuff, if they expanded that and even give more development to the mercenaries like that he hires, if you expanded the first 3 episodes to six, make that the first season, make the end of the first season where when the daimyo's soldiers come in and they find the priest, that scene, like you can make that the end of the first season, and then it and then that expands like what's happening in Japan. Meanwhile, the first season, you expand this, you can kind of get more of a backstory on Abraham. You can get more on the so-called prophecy of the church, why he cares about this, like, and you can flesh out the mercenaries. Like you can just do a bunch of stuff with it that is just didn't do. And I can't unsee, and I know I probably shouldn't review this that way, but I can't, but after watching the whole thing, I just can't help but think like, man, it would have been better if they had done this because they could flesh this out and they could have done more things. And this is all, and I'm saying all this because this all relates back to the fact that if you're not one of the main two characters, you don't really get character. You don't really get a character development kind of thing. And it's just, I can't, it's a B. Characters are a B. Huge. And I'm sorry if I kind of like rushed through that, but it's kind of like, characters are kind of like my favorite part of an anime series, because like an anime series can have it can have a terrible fucking story. It can have terrible animation, right? But if you have, I mean, not terrible animation, but like it can have bad animation. But if you have good characters, if you have good likable characters to bring you through it, then it can carry you through, right? Because you have likable, good characters that you can follow. And I'm not saying Yasuke and Saki aren't good characters, because they are. They're good enough to carry the story along. But I'm saying, like, they shouldn't have been the only ones to kind of get like a modicum of character development with, and I almost forget this, and I almost forgot him, with the exception of maybe Mitsuhide, I think is how they pronounced it, which was one of Nobunaga's generals who didn't like Yasuke, and that's kind of his whole character too, is because he's like, you're not a samurai, you're just a servant, and that's his whole shtick. That's every single fucking line. I think so. Now I'm thinking, I think almost every single fucking line he has mentions something about Yasuke and being a servant, and always being a servant. Like that, those are like the couple lines he always fucking says. Now that I think about it, I could be wrong. If I am, I'm sure you'll let me know. So it's a B. Characters, I rank a B. I guess let's move on to the music, which is the final category, and no cap, no more bullshit. Music is a B. The actual like music in the series, in the anime, like the scores, the music they use during the anime is fine. The one problem I had with it was the intro, was the opening. And of course, if you're an anime fan, you know openings are huge when it comes to like setting up hype, setting up like your, like, maybe not your expectations, but like setting you up to where you can be like, okay, this show's got a pretty cool intro, maybe, or an intro. This show's got a pretty cool opening. Maybe I'll give the show a try. I say that, and it might sound stupid, but there's got to be at least a couple people that have done that before, right? So I give music a B because I like the actual music in the show, but I don't like the opening. And normally that would not be a problem. That wouldn't weigh it down so much, but because it's an anime, because it's kind of like the culture of anime to have for openings. That's why you have so many videos on YouTube that are like analyzing anime openings, that like rank anime openings, for God's sakes. Like, there's a culture for this kind of thing in the anime community. So I can't help but kind of be like, okay, if I don't like the opening, I kind of have to bring the music rating down a little bit, because for instance, let's compare it to not Castlevania. Let's compare it to something like Jujutsu Kaisen, which is another map of production. I'm sorry, I fucking time loop there. But like the fucking openings in Jujutsu Kaisen are fucking great. I love those openings. I never skip a single opening. But then you get to Yasuke with only 5 episodes worth that have the opening, but I have to skip it every time because I just don't like the way the music is mixed. I just don't like the opening. So you see what I actually don't know what don't fully know what I was getting at, but I hope you understand. I'm hoping you understand what I mean when I say there is an importance in the opening music of an anime, and then the actual score, the music in the anime while it's going. And like I said, lastly, to close out this music bit, and I know I've repeated myself before, but I have to make it clear. You know, I like the music when the anime is going, but I don't like the opening. And also that while this entire video is subjective, this entire video is like subjective. This part, the music part, is probably the most subjective out of all of them, because like I said, I may not like the music, you may like the music, and if that's the case, that's cool, brother. Like your music, like your shit, like what you like, brother. So with that being said, we get the end of this little stat profile review kind of discussion, whatever you want. I don't know what I'll call this, but here it is. There's the stat profile. There it is in all its beautiful glory. If you have any comments, anything like that, maybe I was wrong about the voice acting, or maybe I'm wrong about the characters, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
He terrifies you into all the flames.